advocacy issue speech. Do you remember whenever we were kids and we used to play on the playground and have such a great time until one kid would push someone down and ruin it for everyone else? This is a similar plot line to how many sororities and fraternities are being viewed today. Many of the sororities and fraternities have been known to cause much trouble among other people, to cause types of problems among the nation, as well as causing scandals on the news. Being involved in Greek life shows that these students are irresponsible. However, many clubs are doing more good than harm. Negative views exploit college students everywhere. Today I will talk about how today many people view the Greek life system as offensive and types of scandals happening quite often, more often than not, as well as talking about the mandatory requirements needed to be in a sorority and fraternity, and then I will propose to you my policy on how to solve this problem. TCU recently had a scandal happen in 2011 where many of the pledges in Kappa Sigma went on a ski trip to Colorado. This is where the Kappa Sigma brothers heated up a coat hanger and used it to brand and cause third-degree burns on one of their pledges. This is in the Huffington Post's article in 2011, as well as a Baylor SAE theme party happening where many of the students dressed up wearing bandanas, as well as holding 40-ounce bottles in brown paper, as well as a girl covering herself in bronzer to mimic a black person. This was in Millenheiser's post in 2015. Another happened in Lubbock, Texas, whenever a Phi Delta Theta was carrying a banner saying "No means yes," encouraging rape to some people. This was in Sports' article in 2015. Many of these boundaries were set up to protect the sororities and fraternities alike. However, some of these boundaries need to begin to come down. Sororities and fraternities were established early on, many years ago. Close to 100 years ago, the first fraternity was established called Sigma Alpha Epsilon, better known as SAE. This was established with nearly 370 of the 400 members fighting for the Confederate States in the Civil War. This was in McCoy's article in 2015. I'm sure most of you have heard about the SAE scandal happening at OU, where many of the fraternity brothers commenced in chanting a racist song, exemplifying offensive and explicit language. Due to being funded by alumni, these fraternities and sororities are constantly being fed by the information of racism, harassment, and hazing still being among us. Many of the parties that go on and many of the events that these sororities and fraternities grow have pictures going viral on Facebook, on Twitter, and many other social media sites that exemplify many of these racism and harassment and hazing types of events that still happen. The racist theme party I stated earlier at Baylor was brought to the attention by administration from a student who got offended. She stated that the pictures of the girl who were mimicking a black person were very offensive to her, and she felt like she didn't belong at Baylor due to these students around her commencing in these types of activities. However, the SAE advisor, Dr. James Henderson, told her his statement saying that he believes that the media and that many of Hollywood stars are to blame for this type of behavior. She lashed back out and saying that Hollywood didn't host this party, it was students among her. This was from Gordon's article in 2006. Another happened at the University of Alabama whenever a student named Kennedy Cobb was an incoming freshman trying to rush for a sorority. She had a GPA from high school of 4.3. She was salutatorian, as well as being a native from Tuscaloosa and having her great-grandfather on the board of trustees. She would have seemed like a really good fit for the sorority, however, she was half black. 2 hours before the voting commenced, the alumni stated that they had already decided who they wanted in the sorority and who they didn't want in. Kennedy was one who they denied. Many believe it was because of her skin color. Now that I've talked to you about these Greek life views that many people see, I will talk about the mandatory requirements needed to be in a sorority to begin with. Many of the mandatory requirements involve money, grades, as well as being involved in philanthropy events. Many of the sororities mentioned have a range from anywhere between $300 to $600 per semester just to be in the sorority alone. As well as having the minimum amount of money to be involved, you also have to have a minimum of 2.5 GPA to be included. Needless to say, from the Baylor website, there's an application that states that many of the women's sororities will not accept a woman who does not have a minimum of 2.75 GPA. As well as having the grades and the money to be involved, the students also have to have hours and hours of prep work that goes into these types of events. The hours of prep work happen during the after hours from school and homework and social life. They happen during the late hours of the night and the early hours of the morning. I know a personal Kappa Alpha Theta member from Oklahoma State University, and when I asked her how many hours she expected to put into the preparation for their homecoming float, she said they spent at least 100 hours total. As well as knowing the hours of prep work, having a minimum of GPA, and the money to be involved, knowing the history behind the types of sororities and fraternities is also very important for potential new members to be involved too. Talking today about the deleterious side of the Greek life, as well as the mandatory events needed to happen, I will also persuade you on noticing my solution and my policy that I propose. People are constantly inflicting prejudiced judgments. The policy that I'll be proposing today is one of reflection. Today I'll be stating how, looking back and taking a step back and realizing how many of these students want to change and want to end racism, harassment, and hazing on campuses. However, being fed the information from the powerful alumni means that these types of events keep on happening. The alumni, the members, and the potential new members will unite to show support. The alumni will provide the funds to support these kinds of changes, as well as the current members will show the maturity and put aside their childish behavior, as well as the potential new members will provide a fresh face to supply a new display of these Greek life members to disband from the previous outlook of having disobedient and offensive members of the clubs. Assuming that everyone who is in the Greek life is the same is the wrong way to go about this. My following statements will further prove this point. Since 1825, all but 3 U.S. presidents have been members of fraternities, as well as the first female astronaut and the first female senator. All 3 of these statements have been from class from 2012. Overcoming the attitudinal and structural boundaries is something that many students have to overcome. The powerful alumni will provide many of the resources to overcome the attitudinal boundaries, as well as the students will take a stand in putting the structural barriers to the ground. The advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages. As stated from the SMU Delta Gamma website in 2012, the Delta Gamma girls raised they volunteered 2,223 hours, as well as raising $26,700 for the Service for Sight nonprofit organization. As well, the Delta Gamma nationwide girls raised nearly $800,000 towards nonprofits as well. And the Make-A-Wish Foundation is in alliance with the Chi Omega sorority, who raised nearly $2.9 million. Alike, all of these sororities and fraternities have had their good days and their bad days. However, it's time to put the days of harassment, hazing, and racism aside and focus on solving the issue of prejudiced judgments going towards these college students alike. Now that I've informed you of the negative views that many people see of Greek life, as well as the mandatory requirements needed to be involved, I'll now tell you about how you can get in contact and get more information. Simply by going to kappagamma.com. For example, at the bottom bar you will see an address where you can get involved personally, a toll-free phone number, as well as a fax number to get more information and statistics. Being involved in Greek life shows how students are irresponsible and how they can do this type of behavior. However, students alike do more good than harm.